move, how you were able to move the stereotype of refugee in general, to tell your story and inspire others, and you become the founder of Resilience International.
So I think my story is really, I consider myself to be an outlier, because not many people who have come through this life as a refugee end up in a journey like mine. I know a couple of us, but just to let you know, I grew up like in very like at the very bottom of the poverty line. As a refugee, you don't have anything at all. But very early on in my life, I started creating values for my own life, and education was something that I really valued. So I remember, like, when I was finishing my primary school, we used to study under a tree with, no classrooms. And, we still used to go to school, and we say we go to school, we see our teachers. And then I finished, I did my high school. And then after that, when I went to Kenya, I started, trying to get into a higher education. As you might know, it's only less than 1% of all refugees in the world, or refugees who are actually supposed to access higher education at that age, who are actually have access to any higher education beyond secondary education. And so I was going into it with like a lot of, I didn't know what was going to happen, if I was going to be successful, but I just wanted to try anyway. And so that's where kind of my journey started, even like in terms of being able to share my stories, was through this platform. There's this organization called Jesuit Worldwide Learning. They are in Kakuma, and they offer an online diploma. So as a refugee in Kakuma, you are able to do a diploma from a U.S. university, as if you were in the U.S. So you're doing it online with the professor, interacting with the professor on day-to-day basis. And that kind of expanded my horizon, because that was the same time that I was also starting the organization. So I started the organization in 2010, and I joined the Jesuit Worldwide Learning Program in 2011. And that was also the time when Facebook and other social media were coming up. They were growing. And so I started leveraging these opportunities. And then when I finished that program, I went to study for my bachelor degree at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. And at the same time, I was recommended by the UNHCR to attend a program in Qatar. That was funded by the Qatar Foundation. It's called the WISE. And so that also expanded my opportunities, and it gave me a platform to be able to tell people about my work. And through this, my organization as well, Resilience Action, started getting new partners and new donors who started inviting me to conferences. So while still living in Kenya as a refugee, I was able to attend conferences like in Kampala. There was one I attended virtually in Ethiopia, and a couple of others that happened within Kenya. So these opportunities to get out of that limbo of a refugee camp and be able to tell your story and be seen is a rare opportunity for refugees. It's really rare, and for me, I'm really proud and honored that I am where I am today. And then just to add on that, so when I finished my studies, I applied to a couple of universities to go and do my master's, because I thought, I wanted to do a master's in international development or any public administration, to be able to then, have a much bigger impact, whether it's for the refugees or just the people who are living in poverty. And so that's how I ended up coming to Georgetown and did my master's there.
So currently, Kakuma is hosting mostly 40% of the refugees. With the current COVID-19 that is spreading around in the continent. just what are some of the challenges that the refugees are facing under the ground? Archie, your team are working under the ground.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you now. Yeah. Yeah. Your headphones you're trying to use without the headphones? So we are still talking. We're still our show today is the refugees in East African countries and beyond. We have a drastic number increase. The number has increased drastically from 4.4 to 6.2. And it was just 2 million, more than 2 million refugees in 1 year. Those refugees are facing daily challenges now. Right now, with the COVID-19, there is a lot of challenges that they're going through. The infrastructure, the cut of the aid, the food that was coming from the World Food Program. We are continuing our conversation. The audience questions: how do you think we can end up the refugee crisis in East Africa and beyond? Send us your thoughts. What do you think about the topic, and share with your friends. Welcome back, Mozabel.
Hello.
Yeah. So with the COVID-19 and Kakuma is hosting mostly 40% of the refugees who are in Kenya. What are some of the challenges that the people are facing under the ground?
So, like the whole of Kenya, Kakuma was also on lockdown for the past few months, I think since March. All activities were closed, schools were closed, markets were closed. Only like basic services were there, and food distribution continued. But in Kakuma, about a few years ago, the WFP introduced a program where, which is a blended program, so refugees received some of their food in actual food, as well as received some of it in like cash, like food stamps. Like so, they would be given mobile cash to go and buy food to approved shops. So that the fact that they had introduced this idea about like 3-4 years ago was really a big thing, because it would have been a huge catastrophe if the food supply chain was blocked because of the COVID, and then there was no way to enable refugees to buy food. However, with the lockdown, what that meant is food prices increased, and so the value of that cash handout that was given to refugees was really minimal. And in terms of food, I'm really expecting, if they share the numbers, for example, in Kakuma, a high number of malnutrition, we would be able to see, we'll see that increase in the future. I think this will be a common trend in all refugee camps, just because, with the limited supply chain, there will be some months where like WFP will not be able to provide food, for example. And then with the closing of market, it just makes things more difficult and more expensive. I know, for example, Kakuma has better services than like other refugee camps, for example, in Tanzania, where like things just get closed and no information is provided to refugees. And so you're kind of left to provide for yourself, but then you don't have any direction.
So part of the program that you are doing under Resilience International, you're working also in education. 3.7 million refugee children are out of school. According to UNHCR, 61%. There is an increase on the primary school education from 61% to 63%, and 23% to 24% for the secondary school education. But it's still there is 19.9 refugees, 7.4 million who are outside of school. What is the solution for that?
Yeah, so I really agree with you with those numbers. If you can add to that, for example, we only have like maybe 50 to 60% of refugees of refugee children who are actually in primary school, and this number is different from each country. But if you look at the global school attendance statistic, you'll find that globally it's about 90 to 95% of kids of elementary school are actually in school. And for refugees, these numbers, they keep dropping as you continue with the higher education, like especially at the secondary level, as you said, only 24%. If you divided that number even in terms of the girls and boys, you will see that in primary school, the number of girls and boys is almost parallel, if not more. But then you go to high school, you find this number, the number of girls who are actually in secondary education, it falls dramatically. And it continues to fall when you go beyond high school. In tertiary education, as I said earlier, is only like less than 1% who are in higher education. So I think there are a couple of factors here that are at play. So one factor is just refugee camps are not, they are temporary in nature, right? Even if it's 30 years, but those 30 years are called still temporary. And that makes it difficult for long-term planning for things like this. There's no long-term policy. There's only 1 year policy, right? There's only 1 year strategy. And so you find even the infrastructure being put in place, they are those long-term. They do not always put into consideration what will come up next year, for example. They would, but the money will not actually cover that. And so you find like in many refugee camps, the available infrastructure are always less than the number of children who need to be in school. And this infrastructure, I mean classrooms and the teachers, the number of trained teachers that are actually available to teach in these schools. The other challenge you would have is when children are spending time between two countries, they're in South Sudan, they're in Kakuma, they're in Burundi, and then they have to be in a refugee camp. There is a lot of time that is being lost in there. And for them to be able to regain education, they need a lot of support. So that is kind of a big factor that would just make many kids to say, I'm going to stay home. There's no way I am 10 years old, I will go and learn in primary one, for example. So that is also a big factor. So it's both the refugee camp and the countries where these refugees are coming from. If there was a possibility for the sake of children, these countries to stop fighting, because these children are the ones who are being affected most. And then at the same time, for like humanitarian operations to also have like long-term planning for these refugees. And then also Kakuma has like African populations in terms of the number of girls, for example, that are in primary and secondary education. We know a lot about the gender discrimination within our own communities, whereby girls' education is not really valued. This is still happening even today. That the number of girls who are actually able to go to school continues dropping as the children grow into teenage years and into adulthood.
I think there is another issue of that 30% of the girls who are in this refugees camp, they start birth before the age of 19. And there is a lot of issues of sexual harassment, sexual abuse by the people who are in the refugees, by their partners who are there. And currently with the COVID, these numbers keep increasing and keep rising day by day. So what is the problem here, and the solution that we expected to have in the short term. So we are still talking about our topic today is the refugees in East African countries, and beyond. What are the solutions for this? Isabel, welcome back.
Yes, I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening with my connection, but so I also wanted to say something else. I don't know where we stopped around, like the reason for education, and I was saying the other reason that I could give is just around the access to services like food and water. If a kid is not able to have food home, this impacts their ability to go to school. So they're just these small factors that all build into the number we are having of preventing kids from being in school.
We can move on to the issue of the reproductive health and 18. There is a statistic by the 18 women without reproductive age. 9.1 of them were pregnant in the camps. 3.7 increased primarily the health care unutilized that provide to them. 4.3 were complicated. They have complicated during the birth, when they give birth. So it's still Resilience International. You work on the issue of representing the reproductive health. What is going on here with these numbers?
Yeah, so we did a lot of adolescent sexual and reproductive health. This year, we kind of transitioned that into livelihood focus. So we are still giving reproductive health information, but within mixed in our livelihood programs. But I would say we did a survey back in 2015 about what you just talked about, the number of girls who are getting pregnant, and also like the number of just general women who are getting pregnant without intending to. But I have more. I know more about the girls, like adolescent girls. In Kakuma refugee camp, for example, girls start getting pregnant as early as 12 years old. And you find by the time they celebrate their 18th birthday, it's a huge percentage of girls who are already sexually active by that time, either through just the teenage years, but a big chunk are also people who are introduced to sexuality by force. They were raped mostly by like relatives or close people, and so that also contributes to the number we are seeing of teenage pregnancies, which in turn creates a huge burden for these girls, because most of them, they have to tend for these children even years after. Most of these girls will drop out of school. They will not be able to go to school. And why are we seeing these numbers? From my perspective, one is just the limited information that we give to adolescents. Especially most refugee communities, for example, in Kakuma, you will see that most people come from African communities, and we tend to be very conservative when it comes to sexual matters. And so how much information is given to these girls or boys or youth in general is really, really limited. And then at the facility level, like health clinic level, there is really nothing in terms of information that can be offered that is being offered to adolescents, because this is the age where the most risk is for pregnancy. But most organizations, they feel it's much better to talk about things like STDs and HIV and AIDS, because we have already navigated that cultural barrier around HIV. If you go like 20, 30 years ago, even talking about HIV was also a huge problem in most of our communities. But at some point, we've already navigated that, so we are freely able to talk about HIV, but we are still not able to talk about pregnancies. And so there should be reproductive health programs that are specifically designed for pregnancies. And it just starts with the information. Just we saw, for example, many girls that attended our programs, just having that information before even giving them any service or any additional counseling, just giving them that accurate information so that they know how their body functions, how to, stand on themselves, like on their own feet, and how to prevent themselves from unintended pregnancies. It really increases the chances of them staying in school and not getting pregnant, right? And then on the other hand, it's services. I'm talking about contraceptives, condoms, as well as just the additional professional health services. These ones for adolescents, they are not existent. And I think it's not just in Kakuma. I think because it's a very controversial, like culturally controversial service, many humanitarian agencies just prefer to not offer it. There are cases where adolescents are given reproductive health services. For example, if there was an immediate rape case that was there, so they would be given the post-exposure prophylaxis to prevent pregnancy. But long-term, like long-term prevention is not always there. Why? For example, if you go to Kakuma, most family planning clinics, they are intended for like mothers. Like you are assumed to be a mother, you already have a child, or you are married. So with the cultural barriers that these teenagers will face, they don't even feel like that space is conducive enough for them as a young person, because they're gonna get like a lot of pushback back into the community, especially for girls. It's very, very difficult. So it starts with having this information, just giving them the accurate information, and then making sure that we have the services that we can give to this youth and adolescents.
So when you talk about the long-term plan, how do you envision that will be in the educational curriculum as well?
Yes, and it is actually on paper. It is in many settings, right? Even in Kakuma, I believe reproductive health is part of the curriculum. It's just how is it being taught, right? Is it being delivered in an accurate manner? So, for example, and I'm just I'm talking about like what I know when I used to live in Kakuma. Most of the reproductive health information is being offered from an abstinence perspective. So you are a girl, you should maintain, don't start engaging into sexual activity. That is just one story, because abstinence is good. It's not like it's a bad. Abstinence is the best thing to prevent from HIV and just to have to prevent from unintended teenage pregnancies. But you have to tell people the whole story. So it's abstinence, but there is also for those who cannot abstain. Where should you go, or what information do you want? Do you need to know? That is because with the many religious and cultural barriers, it's just so difficult to tell young people. It's not difficult. It's a system that has put in place that we don't tell these young people about this other information. Otherwise, we are gonna be encouraging them to engage into sexual activity. And all that, yeah.
So part of the amazing work that you are doing, the Akwaaba Green Ltd for solar energy and internet services, and you also trying to help build entrepreneur in the upcoming future, the generation of new refugees entrepreneur. How do you envision the long-term plan for this project?
Yeah, so my vision as growing up as a refugee has always been a refugee youth, a young person, a young girl or a young man growing up as a refugee with the ability to work, to earn money, whether through owning a business or just going to work somewhere. And so with the two projects that we have, Resilience Action and Okapi Green, they are giving us the opportunity to contribute. So with the Resilience Action, we have our business, small business program, for example, where we help refugees to start small businesses and grow them. And then on Okapi side, what we are trying to solve is how can we give refugees renewable and reliable electricity services that will be able to contribute to growing these small businesses that are being run by refugees. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I hear. Yeah, you can continue. So we were talking about the reliable resources that can be provided to refugees and build their personality. Yes, Musabel.
Yeah. So I was saying, I don't know where we got lost, but I think
the issue of that you were providing, give them resources, reliable resources, so that can be in the buildable human being.
Yeah. So we have the micro entrepreneurship program where we train refugees on how to start small businesses, and for those who have already started, how to grow them. In a refugee camp, a business is something that could earn you as much as $100 per month up to maybe $300, but that is a lot of money when you consider that the economy of the refugee camp, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we are trying to do now on the side of the Okapi, because with Okapi Green, we are going to build a mini grid that will supply electricity to businesses as well as to households. The idea is, because many businesses are saying we are small, but we can grow. We can earn more money as refugees if we had like a stable electricity here. So we are providing electricity as well as internet because of to give more access. It builds into the livelihood of refugees, because with more electricity, with an internet access, a business could be able to sell more. They could work longer hours. They could even have more products. People who could not afford like a fridge could put a fridge in their shop and sell some other products. So that's what we are piloting right now, and hopefully we'll have an answer by next year.
And how this project is going to change the stereotype of refugees in general?
Yeah, so the project is actually already changing that stereotype. Like both two projects, like even Resilience Action. Before, you used to be considered like you wait until you are given as a refugee. You don't have your hands, you don't have your legs. But when I founded Resilience Action, and now with Okapi, we were able to show them that you can actually grow an organization. You're actually able to grow an NGO, a humanitarian NGO, run by refugees themselves. Okapi Green is owned by refugees and is run by refugees. The Resilience Action is also owned by refugees and is run by refugees. And that ability, it inspires other refugees to also start doing things. After me, I've seen other small organizations coming up. They are doing a lot of great things, because me, I'm mostly focused on the ability to work, refugees' ability to work, and the ability to grow a small business and earn money, And we've seen other organizations that are now doing ICT for refugees, teaching refugees how to code, and these are like fully run by refugees. I have my friend; she's a coder, like she's a coding specialist, and she trains refugee girls on how to do coding. Right? We have another one that is training mothers on agribusiness, on like how you do sustainable farming and take that to the market and things like that. Yeah. So I see the future where more and more refugees have that space to do things, including and it starts with a very back when someone is young. Giving them that opportunity to go to school. That's where it started. Because I don't think if I never finished primary school, I don't think I would have been able to create an organization and grow it where it is now.
Okay, so for the Okapi Green, Where do you find your resources there, and how many people are working with you underground?
So CAPI is run by my friend. Is called Vasco. He's the managing director of CAPI, and I just support him from the background. We have two grants, like capital infused grants that we received. One was from a U.S. agency, and then another one was from a European agency that gave us to run the project. So, with the leadership of my colleague and my friend, he has a team of about 10 other refugees. In total, I think there are 12 refugees. So in there is like someone who's in charge of like the day-to-day operations. We have like a ground like technical specialists who are able to detect any problems with the electricity. These are people who are trained by local vocational training institutions, and they are now helping. And then we have like our like technical assistants who visit these homes every day. So we haven't started like distributing yet, but we are starting soon. So this thing is just there and standby when we start the actual distribution.
So it's a service will be offering Kakuma.
Only in Kakuma, yes. No, right now it's because it's a mini grid. So like the mini grid, you have to build it on the side, and then you can only supply maybe up to 1 kilometer square from that mini grid. Yeah.
Okay.
So we are building the first, and then we are also building the second mini grid in a hospital. There was a coronavirus emergency fund that we received that will enable us to build another small mini grid for a hospital. The goal of that is that the hospital will have 24/7 operation, like 24/7 electricity, should there be any cases of COVID-19 in Kakuma refugee camp. So we are playing that part as well.
Okay.
In the camp, yeah.
I think some of your organization goals also to motivate or to build the leaderships in the refugees. You have some kind of the programs that you are providing, like the English program. And my question is, what kind of program that need to be designed to build up the refugees' leadership personality?
So based on my journey, I would say the first thing is just ensuring like as many refugee children as possible are in school. That is the most important thing. And ensuring that education in a refugee camp, even if it's a refugee camp, ensuring that this education is of good quality, not just, hiring some, non-qualified teachers, having good qualified teachers, good facilities, laboratories, computer equipment. These are what prepare refugees to actually be able to be leaders in their own lives. You can be a leader from any direction of life. You don't have to be like a president or a minister. You can just start a small organization. You can start your own business. You can be a teacher and you are leading. That is what I would say is like the key. And then as for me personally, I'm not doing any like direct leadership programs right now, just because I'm currently here. But when I go back, I already have that in mind to be able to like, especially bring people who have graduated from high school, to encourage them to seek additional opportunities and just be active in their own communities.
Okay. You also have done some amazing work for the community underground, the refugees communities who are in Kenya. We are continuing on that. The award that was given to you in 2016, the 120 under 40 project award. Do refugees advocates in general have to be recognized for this kind of an award, and what does that mean to you?
I think I'm the only advocate. I'm the only refugee advocate on that list. It was 120 under 40 leaders who are advocating for family planning services.
Services.
And this I was nominated because of the work I do with adolescent girls. As I said earlier, many adolescents, all they need is just being given the accurate information, and then think of expanding services to them, including contraceptives and other family planning services. And that's one recognition I've received, but I've also, as I said earlier, I went to this fellowship in Qatar. That was also, I would say, kind of an award to me, because I was able to represent refugees in the fellowship. There've been about 3 or 4 people who have gone to that fellowship, because we were recommended directly by UNHCR. So UNHCR had one spot where they would choose someone to go and represent, and I was the one who represented in 2015 up to 2016, 17. I think these recognitions are very important. For one, because people talk about refugees at a very macro level, right? If you ask if you ask just anyone, for example, in the US, how much do you know about refugees? They only know about it from what they read on CNN or BBC. They don't know about it from like an individual or community perspective, what actually happens in the life of a refugee. And so for me, that's why I'm honored to be here, because I can tell that story. For instance, even though there are all these services, there are a lot of people who support refugees from all over the world, countries and individuals and foundations. At the end of the day, survival in a refugee camp depends on the refugees and their own communities, because it's never enough. Someone who is living, refugees are actually living, is not even below the poverty line. They're maybe at 10% of the poverty line. If the poverty line is $1 per day, then a refugee is probably living at 1 cent per day. And so that is that level of poverty that can kill, right? But you don't hear stories of refugees are dying of hunger every day, because life happens. People organize themselves in the communities, whether it's at the family level or 2, 3 families. They forge a way to survive, and those are stories that I think the world needs to also hear, how refugees are able to survive, how someone like me, who spent almost my entire life as a refugee, was able to get out because I had that access to an education that and the exposure, for people to learn to know me, and then that ability to create things that is giving back to the refugees.
Okay. When is this crisis going to end?
When I think that's a good question. The refugee crisis, it started it's been there for maybe 100 years now. I think the UN was created because of the refugee crisis. And the point when countries will stop fighting, the point when civil conflicts, like when a Nuer is no longer fighting a Dinka, and a Bantu, a Hutu is not fighting a Tutsi in Congo, or in Burundi, when an Oromo is not fighting a Tigray in Ethiopia, that is when we will start seeing the reduction of refugees, because the number of refugees is directly dependent upon how much is happening in a country. Of course, there are exceptions. For example, a huge number of early Ethiopian refugees, they were fleeing the drought that happened. So that's a different story. But the current war refugees, the forcibly displaced refugees, it only depends on how peaceful a country is. Because there are 3 solutions to refugees, but I can say there are only 2 solutions that are actually accessible. Once you become a refugee, you can either go back home or get resettled to a different country. It's only 0.5% of refugees who are able to get resettled, right? And so you are talking about 99.5% of refugees who will either live their entire life in a refugee camp or just go back home. Many are those who choose to go back home as soon as peace regains. We saw this in Congo when I was living in Tanzania, when there was some good sign that there will be peace in the country. Everyone wanted to go back home. I gave you the example of South Sudan as well in 2008, when there was just signs that peace is gonna come back. Everyone wanted to go back home because home is home. You know, home is home. Home is where you can build your life, but you cannot go back home if it's not safe. And that's why they say home is where you have safety. So some people are forced to consider a refugee camp as their home. Why? Because that's where they can at least say, I am safe here. And so I think I gave a very long answer, but the short form of it is just that the refugee crisis will stop when we are no longer seeing wars in our countries. And when will war stop? That is now the question, right? When will war stop, right? In my country, for example, I think with good intentions and good leadership and not having many external forces like external governments, these people who sell guns, these people who come and take the resources. If these people can stop from that external perspective, and then we have more peace building initiatives inside the country, and we can build good leaders. Leaders are not the president, because these presidents, we just have like some corrupt bunch of people who already have the power, and they are just accessing it. You know, leaders are on the ground. The teachers who teach our children, the nurses, the doctors who are in our hospitals, the village leaders, we call them the 10 house leaders. It starts there. If you go, for example, in Tanzania, that's how they've sustained peace all this while, because their institutions, they start from that level. The teacher teaches children about peace and patriotism. There is every 10 houses, there is a leader who is actually helping to maintain peace and harmony within that community. And then it grows from there. When we have at the government level, is just having an inclusive government. You don't want a government that is just looking for this group of people and not, taking care of this other group of people, because once a certain group feels marginalized and they feel their voice is not heard, they will tend to start seeking for external resources and then use violence, so that because they believe that's the way they're gonna be heard, and for me, I think so. This combination of factors, combined with a strong, non-corrupt government, would really bring peace and stop the number of refugees. We need to at least stop adding that slope. We need to at least reduce the slope of number of refugees who are going into the camps. Let it stop fast, and then we can start getting those who are already refugees back to their homes. Those who can access resettlement, let them go, because most countries will not give them what we call naturalization, like become our citizen. Not many countries do that. Very few countries give refugees the naturalization option. It's just a paperwork option that many refugees don't have access to.
Okay, so Muzabel, right now you are the founder and executive director for Resilience Action International, and you're also the founder of Okapi Green Ltd. What's your message for the upcoming refugees who also want to be in your place?
Yeah, so right now I'm only the founder of Resilience Action, because I have an executive director who runs. Yeah, so I only founded, but because living from far away is always good to build leaders who are on the ground. And that is my message. You can do it, whether you live as a refugee or you live in any environment where you feel like resources are so limited. You can do it. It starts with the education. Honestly speaking, it starts with building our younger generation, ensuring that we can take that number from 60 to 90% who are in school, taking the high school numbers from 24 to 84, there's no reason why we should only have 24 young people in refugee camps for 30 years. That number has been there. Like it's been 20 to 25% of youth who are in high school.
Mm-hmm.
There is no reason to have that. If it was like we've only seen this number in like 3-5 years, good. But for 30 years, that number has been the same. You go to Tanzania, it's the same. You go to Syrian refugees in Lebanon, it's the same. You go to Kenya, it's the same. You go, like, why do we have these low numbers? So he's calling for like UNHCR and the UN agencies. He's not do something. It's just do your job, right? There's no way we can have 25% forever. We need to bring that number of young people who are accessing IT, because those are the leaders of tomorrow. I wouldn't have been talking to you today if I didn't finish that high school. I did my high school under a tree, right? I did my high school under a tree, and yet I went to Georgetown.
Your master's degree.
Exactly. So you need at least to have something accessible there for refugees, because that's where the actual leadership abilities are starting to be built. And then to refugees themselves is just the ability to speak and show yourself out there, because everyone can do it. Everyone can get out, as long as you have like a goal to be someone.
Okay, thank you, Muzabel Walinga, for joining me, the founder and executive director for Resilience Access International. Thank you.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
So we are still talking about the topic.